accessing the meeting at calendar.northdumfries.ca/council. Under the video column, click on the link for the meeting date that you wish to watch. You don't need to be a YouTube account watcher. You cannot directly participate in the meeting via the live stream, as this is for viewing only. The second way is that members of the public interested in attending as an observer or wish to speak to any item listed under items 4 presentation or 7 items for discussion must submit requests in writing to the clerk's division at clerk@northdumfries.ca before 7 p.m. on October 25th. A link and telephone number will be provided to those who register before the registration deadline. In accordance with the township's procedural bylaw, members of the public are not able to verbally speak to all items on the regular council agenda. Members of the public may only verbally speak to the items listed under items 4 and 7 exclusively, but may submit their comments in writing for all other items. If you'd like to comment on a particular item, members of the public are invited to submit written comments at clerk@northdumfries.ca, which will be provided to the mayor and council prior to the meeting and will form part of the public record. I'd like to now call the meeting to order and ask for approval of the agenda.
Certainly. So moved by Councillor Roman, seconded by Councillor Gillespie, that Council adopt the October 26, 2020 regular Council agenda as presented. Mayor Foxton, your vote on the motion?
Yes.
Councillor Roman?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
All right, that carries.
Thank you. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof?
I have a possible conflict of interest with item 5.1 with the Air Paris band. However, I'm not sure that there's a decision being made. So
I think it's just a report, and I don't think there's any monetary gain. So it's at your discretion.
yeah, I think it's just a report, information report, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So presentations, oh, we've passed that, correct? So presentations 4.1, presentation from Steve Langlois, Principal Planner for Monteith Brown Planning Consultants regarding the Arena Strategy Phase 1 and 2. So there you are. Hello, Steve, and welcome.
Evening. Thank you for having me. Am I good to go here?
You are.
And just to clarify, am I sharing the screen or is that being done on the township's end?
Ashley?
If you could share the screen, Steve, that'd be great. If you have any difficulties, I'll be your backup.
All right. Well, you should be seeing the presentation. So without anything further, I'll jump right in. I do have, I will mention, I think when we get to Q&A, we have 2 other members of our team that will ask if possible to promote them because some of the questions might be relevant to the work that they contributed to the report. But in the interest of time, I'll get through the presentation myself and then we'll open it up. So. Purpose of the study, we were in front of your council 2 months ago to present phase 1 of the Arena strategy. We're now here to complete the work, including phase 2 of the business case. And a reminder that the Arena strategy is here to inform capital investment and long-term arena needs and provision. And at your August 10th meeting, we were authorized to move forward. A quick summary just on what phase 1 found, and this is relevant because you may have questions on this phase of work as well. We know that demand has been sort of pretty steady in the past, but moving forward, we anticipate that demand for arena needs, ice needs in particular, will be rising. In large part, this is due to the increase anticipated in the youth population, 57% more youth of ice sport playing age by 2031. Our analysis found in phase 1 a current need for 1.5 ice pads. You have 2 ice pads now, hence there is a bit of a surplus, with demand steadily growing to 2031, which is our projection period when there will be a need for 2.3 ice pads. we know we can't deliver fractions of ice pads. What the study found on the next slide you'll see is a continued demand for two appropriately designed ice pads. In large part, the issue with the ACC is that it cannot accommodate the entirety of this future demand, given its undersized ice pad and some other factors that are attributed to its design. So that's where we had left off from our August presentation. And then the phase two, the business case, looks in more detail at two specific recommendations, two specific options, I should say. One is a comprehensive renovation to the Air Community Center, which is your Queen Elizabeth Arena, built in or around 1977 with items that actually predate that time, and the NDCC twinning of North Dumfries Community Complex. It's important to remember that there has been some community consultation on this. In particular, the first phase of work to look at, we reached out and spoke in depth with many of your key user groups, as many of them rent many hours of time at the facilities. There was a questionnaire for them as well as an online open house because of social gathering restrictions that has all occurred virtually. And more recently, there's been a phase two virtual open house that garnered 126 submissions from members of the public. They were asked a series of questions. All of that's been documented in the report, but I will point out some of the key findings. In particular, sort of the top line, you'll notice that of the two options that were presented, and there was a fair bit of detail behind these options. It wasn't just, they had full understanding of the costs associated with these options. That was part of the discussion, but there was a clear preference for twinning of the NDCC versus comprehensive renovation of the ACC, about a 13-to-1 ratio. And although it was not a part of our scope, and I think we were pretty clear that it was not part of the scope, I think as members of council, you should be aware the interest in the community that was expressed for an indoor pool. Now that's something that, again, is really needs to be looked at in greater context of your broader recreation needs through some additional study. But that's, we're passing that information along because I think it's relevant to other discussions that you might have. Some of the reasons that were put forward for supporting the twinning of the NDCC by your residents and user groups, in particular, it would offer a second regulation size rink, increased tournament potential. There's different convenience factors associated with having all of your activities being at one location, improved parking, which is a known concern at the ACC, and better safety and accessibility. The other note that may or may not be relevant and would be relevant more to the budgetary figures is the Center for the Community Group reiterated their support for the twinning of the facility. They're still holding about $500,000 in reserve from the initial capital fundraising campaign. So I'll jump in a little bit to illustrate what's included in the two options and what some of those costs might be. So a comprehensive renovation of the Air Community Center would include a replacement of the current ice slab. This predates 1977, so it has largely run its course. The issue that we do have here is it's about 26 feet short of what the rink at the NDCC is, and about 13 feet narrower than the other rink, and that's the NHL standard. Because of the site that's on, it would have to be replaced within its current configuration. But this option would also include an upgrade to the ice plant, so you get new ice making equipment, new brine lines, new slab, new boards. You'd retain the current building shell and change rooms. There's really no impact there. But it would allow an opportunity for other life cycle and accessibility improvements to occur. There's things because of the age of the building that need to be addressed, for example. The cost of undertaking this project was valued at $4.59 million. A little over half of this is to address the renovation, and a little under half is to really address the balance of the life cycle and accessibility improvements. Many of these have been identified through your building condition audits as being short-term requirements. So if you even choose not to go forward with the comprehensive renovation, there's in and around $2.5 million of work that would be required over the course of the next 5 to 10 years. We looked at operating costs because this is an important contributor as well to the decision that you have in front of you. I'll just focus on the last bullet point here. Because of really the limited ability of this facility to accommodate all of the community's growth, as well as the fact that costs will outpace revenues as a percentage year over year, the net subsidy required to support this option would grow from around $241,000 to $305,000 per year in year 10. So I'll summarize all of this. There won't be a quiz by any means, but we can absolutely also respond to any questions or come back to these when we get to the end. The second option that was looked at was twinning of the NDCC. This would allow for a second regulation size ice pad with maybe 100 to 200 seats. And really that can be accommodated by just having a couple rows of benches along one side. So this is a much more Spartan rink than the one that you have currently. There would not be bowl seating. There would not be a walking track. It would in large part be, it would serve as practices, tournament venue. This is not a signature rink. So that helps to keep the cost down, but it would be a full 200 by 85 foot ice pad. And then you would look, once this was in place, you would look to remove the ACC from service as an ice venue and possibly look at repurposing that facility down the road. Now the cost to doing this, and these are 2020 dollars, so current year dollars would be $10.8 million. Again, if you're not doing this for 5 years, for example, that cost through inflation will escalate. In addition, we recognize, and just in transparency, there's about $4 million that's required to maintain what you have there, your single pad arena, the capital items relative to the health center, the administrative and dry space that you do have there in a state of good repair. Most of these are longer term because the facility is only 10 years old. These are accruing sort of 20, 25 years out. But as with any investment, more investment is always required. Now, the operating costs associated with this. So in contrast, because now we're talking a twin pad arena where there are efficiencies for staffing in particular. There's different opportunities for revenue that would not be there with maintaining 2 single pad rinks, and different energy efficiencies as well. The net subsidy required for this option actually declines from $77,000 to about $2,000. So in and around break even on a year-to-year basis as you go forward. So that is, an impact on the budget compared to the other option that was presented. This is a comparison. Again, that bottom line, you can sort of see what those two options look like from a capital perspective. And this is that escalation I was talking about over time, really just showing, I think, a 5.5% escalation at this inflation rate at this time. Capital costs are highly volatile and have been for some time. So this is really just a projection. You would obviously need to, if you're taking one of these projects to market, you would look to take another quick look at what the market and labor rates might be at that particular time. And then operating costs, you'll see what's represented in gray is the cost of operating 2 single pad arenas. And that's so a net subsidy in around 240, growing to a little over 300. The other option, which is your twin pad arena, it's hard to see here because it sort of hovers around that net performance of break even throughout the latter half of this projection period. So some of the other, in this case, more qualitative factors that that might be considered in making your decision is the impact of a second regulation size ice rink. What this does is it literally gives you more ice. So it gives you greater capacity, greater flexibility to accommodate the demand that's out there. Certain groups right now just cannot use the ACC or they can't use it. They're doing it on modified programming. It's for practices, not for games. And it's not for all age groups. So that's becoming a challenge. It's also a safer environment for all user groups, like, for example, older youth that are into more body contact, adults. Some older adults do prefer a smaller rink, but most that are interested in competitive play, it's a hazard for them. It allows for proper application of sport development models. A lot of the initiation novice type programming are occurring on half ice practices. That really cannot be accommodated appropriately at the ACC. And then there is enhanced tournament potential by having two proper sized rinks. And then the other aspect that is relevant, we feel, is that multi-pad arenas and multi-purpose facilities are typically better able to meet community needs rather compared to single pad arenas and single use facilities. We know the NDCC was initially designed to be twinned, really to activate that concept it would create that true multi-purpose and multi-pad rink that allows for those efficiencies, continues to strengthen its role as a community destination, supporting tournaments, events, longer operating hours, more year-round use, greater potential for co-located services, partnerships, more flexible, responsive to changing trends, and overall just allows for greater promotion of physical activity, social well-being, and inclusion. And then in terms of programming, we were asked to look at opportunities to enhance current usage of your rinks. What we found was that your arena schedules and allocations are very comparable to arenas in similar communities. You're not the city of Mississauga, but you run very similarly to the Paris rink and other sort of small urban rural arenas, insofar as it is very difficult to utilize non-primetime ice. Primetime ice at the NDCC is largely fully booked. So local ice groups, we feel, are receiving generally the amount of time that they require. They're not renting an overabundance of ice just because it's available. They're trying to keep their costs down and offer a quality product to their users. But we know that as demand for ice grows with growth in the community, groups should be encouraged to make efficient use of non-primetime hours and adapt their programs to accommodate all participants. A couple other things that could be looked at, we found many communities have had success with this, offering more drop-in daytime public skating and shinny, which is pickup hockey programs focused on specific age groups. For example, older adults, seniors, we know that's, much as you're not an aging community compared to many others, it is an area that many communities are seeing increased demand for. Even ice sport leagues or skill development programs, those are in demand, and there might be opportunities to supplement what's currently available. Working with schools and other partners to encourage daytime use. You've had good partnership and use with the sport camp. They have interest in growing their programming. And then reviewing rental rates and ice allocation practices. I think there's some opportunity to take that work on in the short term. So with all of that, I think it's on balance, it is our recommendation that the township go forward with supporting the NDCC Twinning option. Right now, I think you have you're floating both of these options in your long-term budget. Obviously, both would not be required. That's part of the reason for getting the clarity through this study. Based on how supply and demand is expected to change over the course of time, We would look at ideally starting the planning for this in the short term with the intent of having the facility open no later than 2025. There's one caveat here, which is that we're in the midst of a pandemic. And really, so the situation does bear monitoring. While there's a lot of optimism and we know groups have been clamoring to get back on the ice, we don't really know the impact of this if having a year, possibly two, away from the sport impacts people's interest in participating. We know we've seen greater interest in certain activities, so that could be something that comes out of this. But I think it's incumbent on us to recognize that this is a very uncertain time, and that this type of planning needs to occur in appropriate steps with due diligence along the way. So, in my last slide, just to mention that some of our assumptions here, we assume that municipal operations of the arenas would be maintained, that they would not be contracted. We recognize that various sources of funding would be required to take this on, including fundraising, which was very successful for the first phase of the NDCC. And these things don't happen overnight. So if we're talking about having it in place for 2025, really a minimum of 3 years is required to get from design to breaking ground to construction and commissioning. So that is my presentation. I would be pleased to take any questions that you do have. If they're relative to any of the capital items or operating dollar figures, I have John Frittenberg and Bryn Jones on the line. I think they've been promoted to the meeting. So
Thank you very much for the presentation. And before I ask for questions, I just want to clarify to the public that this project was to look at our ice surfaces. So those that voted for the pool, I hope they will take part in the leisure study that's going to happen in the near future. We're hoping in 2021. We're not exactly sure, but that's what we're aiming for. And I hope that they will come to the open houses at that time, fill out the proper forms, and look at the data and see where they'd like to go. But this is to deal with the ice surfaces only. Councillors, questions, please. Really good presentation. Councillor Rollerman, the Councillor McCreary.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Steve. One of the things I was hoping to see in the report, which I'm not sure if I missed it or not, but looking at the trends in other communities with regards to ice usage, I know that we've seen places like Markham, which used to be a big hockey center, has declined incredibly because of a different ethnic mix. We're seeing similar things happening in Woodstock, Paris, Ontario. Plattsville down the road has an empty arena. So some of the underlying assumptions that you've made in your report talk about how on page 6 of this report that I have here says that that immigration is not a big factor in North Dumfries Township because we only have 12%. But that was based on a 2016 census report. I'm just wondering about future trends. As the ethnic mixture changes in our township, how will that affect ice usage, and what sort of results have you seen in other communities? And can we factor that into whether or not we actually do need 2 arenas, or whether we can get away with 1 arena? Because quite honestly, people are not playing hockey or not figure skating as much as they used to.
Great question, Councillor, and through you, Your Worship. I think context is really important here. Certainly, immigration and changing ethnicity is a valid concern for hockey nationally, but each community is dealing with it a little bit differently, and the demands are quite different. So, Markham, for instance, 50% of their, Markham, Brampton, Mississauga, almost 50% of their population was not born in Canada. That's not the case in North Dumfries, as much as that might be changing. So, I think it's a more significant factor would be the age of the population. Are you getting children? And the forecasts that we have from the region continue to show that is very strong, that the township is poised to continue to be very family friendly and would be a destination for residents from Canadian or potentially new immigrants. We don't know that. I mean, most first-generation Canadians, most newcomers tend to settle in more urbanized area, and then second, third generation tend to distribute a little bit differently. What we've heard from some of the other research as well is that many new Canadians are interested in trying Canadian sports. So they may not play at an elite level, but if you can get them when they're young, they become introduced to the sport and they become they fall in love with it. So, I think context is important. I would be more concerned if you had a rapidly aging population, and if your population was increasing in terms of the preponderance of low-income families. Because playing ice sports, playing any sport on a regular basis can be challenging for many families. It's not just the money, it's the time, it's the ability to participate. So I think those factors in a community such as yours would be more significant.
Councillor McCreary.
Thank you. I have a question actually about page 31 on the full report that council's received a copy of, and it's a summary of arena participation and trends. I just have a question about something I noticed here. In 2007 and 2008, there were 578 youth participating in hockey. But that was when we had one ice surface. That was before the NDCC was built. But in 2019, 2020, we now have 593 participants. So there's only been an increase of 15 participants, but we are now using 1.5 ice surfaces. So there was an increase in 3% of participation, just 15 participants, and yet we've gone from needing one ice surface to 1.5 ice surfaces. So there must be some change in the way we're scheduling ice, the way the programs are being offered, because we're needing more ice for fewer skaters, or not that many more skaters, I should say. Do you know why that would have happened?
Absolutely, through you, Your Worship. So you hit on one of them. One of the factors is that children playing youth sports today, and youth sports has also changed. You've had a growing girls hockey league in particular, but those that are playing at competitive levels in particular are seeking additional ice time. And there are different standards in place through Hockey Canada that are in essence suggesting additional practice time that may not have been in place at that time. The second factor is in 2007, 2008, that data did support the construction of a second ice pad. So it did find a deficit at that time as well. So while the number of participants playing ice sports at the time has not changed considerably, the demands for ice have changed. And they would have been using at the time, when you just had the ACC, they would have been using additional arenas in outlying areas. Councillor Rollman mentioned Plattsville. We did speak with those other communities. Prime time is largely fully subscribed in all arenas. So I wouldn't say that Plattsville Arena is empty. It's empty during the day and it's empty after 10 o'clock in the evening, but that's a lot to ask of youth in any community to play at those times.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Rossner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to add on to that, to Councillor McCreary's question, I think in order to honestly answer that, we need to find out from our hockey associations how many dollars and how much time, ice time, was taken out of the township, because a lot of teams used to practice in Cambridge, and we used to rent a lot of ice in Cambridge because the ice need was there and we couldn't run it with one arena. I remember numerous times practicing in Cambridge, and pretty much every team had to do it at some point during the season.
Any other questions? Council Roman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The other question I had with regards to your assumptions, maybe through you, Madam Mayor, to Steve, is what impact will other sports have? You talk about income and immigration. People only have so much money to spend. So if they want to play, like Scorpions volleyball, for example, that's in town now, or if they want to be involved in the skate park as opposed to playing summer hockey or spring hockey, what impact will that have on our ice usage? People looking to other activities. I know a lot of people in town who tell me, hey, we're not a hockey family. My daughters don't want to play hockey. They want to go into dance, or my son doesn't want to play hockey. He wants to play indoor soccer. So how have you accounted for those sorts of things in your report?
I would say our report is pretty conservative in that we have taken the existing participation rates and applied those moving forward. We have not accelerated them. What I can say is about a third to a quarter of your children and youth play organized ice sports today. That's a strong percentage, but it also leaves the balance, 2/3 or more, that do not participate in that activity. And it's a good point that they are seeking something else, whether it's organized sport, whether it's unstructured activity, creative arts. You can name a whole host of things that they're probably doing or interested in doing and can't do locally. So, with the ability to, as the community grows, to add additional programming options, gymnasiums can open up a lot of different opportunities. So can other types of spaces. So can, even the arena floor. I think you're seeing growth in some of those non-ice events in terms of summer use. So it still leaves a large portion of the population that is looking for something, and they're looking for it locally. This is your challenge, right? Is how much do we support our residents locally versus try to take advantage of other services delivered in other communities. But we did survey other arena operators, Cambridge in particular. They're not looking to add additional rinks. They're trying to modernize their supply. But as that city grows, they're trying to stay where they are because they're happy with the capacity that they have. But it's no one's sitting with empty arenas during prime time. And that's the time when children and youth are seeking, and all residents for that matter, are seeking rentals.
So if I may, Councillor Rowland, for a minute. First off is we have to remember that we'd asked for a study in regards to our ice surfaces. We didn't ask for a recreational study, which is still to come in the future, to look at the diversity and how diverse we should be. The other thing is something interesting that, if I may call you Steve stated, was that we're getting new families in. We know we're growing. And we know that ice surface right now is tight. And if we get a third more, and we're almost looking at almost doubling the size of air, then we have to admit that the need is here now as we exist, and in the future will be even more so. And that's only a third. The other 2/3 may do other things, at which our recreation study should help us to make good decisions on at that time. But this is an analysis of our ACC and NDC as requested by Council to see which direction we should be heading. Councillor Williman, you had your hand up.
Yes, thanks, Madam Mayor. The only reason why I'm asking is because I have family members who are quite involved in hockey. In fact, my nephew is playing Junior B in Pembroke. But my question is that they live in Wilmot Township, and Wilmot Township is growing very quickly as well. And yet all my nephews who played in Wilmot Township with a population of 20,000 people were accommodated at their twin pad. So we have 10,000 people, and I think in the report it says like there's 6,000 or 7,000 people in this area. How is it that Wilmot Township is able to balance off their needs with two arenas servicing Baden and New Hamburg and outlying areas that a lot of kids from Placer and places like that go to play in New Hamburg? How are they able to do with a twin pad when Air with 6,000 people, we need a twin pad? It doesn't. I guess I'm just trying to get down to how do we arrive at this, that we need two arenas when a much larger center like Wilmot Township is fine with a twin pad.
Go ahead, Steve.
Well, as luck would have it, we just wrapped up an arena study for Wilmot, so I can give you a little bit of context. Council just last week authorized them to take a look at a third ice pad and options for delivering that in the short term. I'd say as quickly as possible, but they'll have to sort through that. Their demand is substantial. In large part because of the growth of girls hockey, and they've become a hub for a regional girls hockey league. So they do have additional pressures, not just locally, but that are sort of coming to them from the region. That's another factor that's in play. But they have demand today for 3 ice pads.
Ashley.
I just wanted to point out, Mayor Foxton, we do have a member of the public as well who's registered to speak to this item. So
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Pam,
thank
Councillor Gillespie.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. There have been some comments about the price of our hockey rentals, and I just wondered how we compare to other areas, because if we're going to go ahead and get a second one and we're still charging a lot, are people going to pay the price? Or are they still going to go somewhere else?
Who would like to handle that? CAO McNeely or? Thank you.
Madam Mayor, we canvass the area municipalities as well as we look at our overhead to operate the arenas. And basically every year where warranted, make recommendations to council for the hourly ice rate. And we do differentiate between prime time versus non-prime time ice. So it is a tiered structure. And we set the minor hockey rate at around 70% of the carrying cost of arena ice. We are in the top third across the region. And when I'm using the region, I'm looking at Brantford, Brant County, as well as the area municipalities within Waterloo region, when I say the region. And we are in the top third of our comparator group.
If I don't see any other questions, I'm going to allow, Councillor Roman.
I just have one last question, Madam Mayor, and I'm not sure which one of our 3 guests can answer it, but I don't really understand this whole idea about the subsidy and how that works. I assume it's based on economy of scale, but I just want to know how they arrived at these numbers and what exactly, we talk about down to $2,000 net subsidy when you have a twin pad. I just understand the math there. Maybe you could help me out with that.
I'm going to pass this question on to John Frittenberg. He assisted with some of the assumptions around the business plan, and you know, if he has any follow-ups for you, we could get into a lot of detail here, but want to make sure we answer your question. John?
Thank you, Steve, and through you, Madam Mayor. We looked at various assumptions based upon the current operating profile of your existing rinks. Excuse me. Just as a blanket statement, it's always more expensive to operate 2 independent rinks than it is 1 joint rink. Frankly, a 4-pad rink is even more economical than a 2-pad rink. So the rule of thumb in the industry is single-pad rinks require big subsidies. Double-pad rinks should be, no, they're not always, but should be at approximately a break-even basis, and 4-pad rinks usually should make money. Now, that's not always the case. It depends on fee scales, it depends on demand, it depends on usually the operating profile in terms of staffing, because staffing is the biggest cost. So in a nutshell, we looked at what your current demand is. We scaled that demand up over the course of the projection period, which is over 10 years. We looked at what that demand is likely to do, given the fact that your single pad rink at the NDCC is currently considered completely occupied during prime time. And then we scaled up the amount of use based upon the population growth on the second pad, again, based upon your existing user profile, which is approximately 75% of your prime time being used by youth, which as the CIO has just mentioned, is at the lower rate, and approximately 25% at the adult rate, which is the higher rate. We also have taken into account the programmatic opportunities that are allowed on, or that are favorable in a twin pad rink. You will definitely get more advertising revenue, for example, out of a twin pad than you will out of two single pads, especially one that has a smaller ice surface. You will certainly have opportunities to run programs during non-occupied ice until your demand catches up with the actual amount of supply that you have, because initially you're going to have more supply than demand, because it doesn't, as you might have seen in the graph in the report, it crosses over on the twin pad situation at approximately 2025, or the 5th year of our projection period. So to summarize, it's based on your existing profile, your existing staff complement, and extrapolated out to look at what it would be if it was 2 single standalone units or 1 multiple unit, and your existing rates. And I should also say that in an effort to remain completely conservative, we increased costs over the projection period by 2%, and we increased on account of inflation, and we increased revenues or your fees only by 1% as you projected out to be sensitive to the price being charged for ice. So it was all those factors that came to bear on the operating projections that you saw in the presentation.
CEO McNeely.
Madam Mayor, if I could just add on what John has just summarized. I know he didn't want to get into the weeds, but one of the biggest cost centers on any arena operation is labor, and specifically the staff complement that is required to staff the building for the 18 or 20 hours that the complex would be open. If I understood the analysis that was done, if we were to twin, we would not be required to hire any additional full-time personnel. If we had the 2 satellite facilities and maintain the status quo as 2 single pads, as we ramp up more hours at the ACC, we would actually be required to hire more staff because of the expanded hours. Because what we've done is specifically this is pre-COVID. In the context of Saturdays and Sundays, we actually only ran 1 shift on each of those 2 days, rather than 2 shifts, what you would normally have if you looked at a full programming day on a Saturday or Sunday. So not having that extra staff member is probably one of the key areas where potential savings could be realized. And the other would be just newer technology. I mean, the reality is, even if we were to rehab the ACC, there are certain built-in inefficiencies from an energy consumption perspective, whether it's a hydro or gas energy source versus a brand new build.
Seeing no further questions, we can ask the delegate to come in.
Hello.
Good evening, Rob.
Hi, good
Mr.
evening.
Bushman.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, Council, and staff, I'm Rob Deutschman. I'm here as a resident of Ayr and on behalf of the Center for the Community Group, CCG. I want to confirm that the CCG strongly supports the consultant's recommendation to twin the NDCC. I note, I had this down already, that Monteith Brown has been active in the region, as Wilmot has also been looking at a 3rd rink. Just saw that in the paper the other day. And I also want to point out Wilmot has a large senior population when you're considering population issues. Phase 1 of the Arena Strategy Report supported the need for the 2nd ice pad. We continue to see strong housing and population growth in Waterloo Region. North Dumfries Township and specifically Ayr will continue to participate in that growth. Pre-COVID interest in our region and community was strong. During COVID and beyond, I'd say that the interest in Waterloo Region has increased as we start to operate in the new normal, with people looking outside the GTA for a place to live, a place with more space. North Dumfries will see that growth, and that will include young families. Ice sports will continue to see strong growth in our community, and that has been confirmed by the Phase 1 study. The Phase 2 study has demonstrated that there is strong community support for the twinning option. The community strongly supports the twinning option over the renovation option 42% to 4%. That is important. Strong community support is essential in making this significant decision and investment in our community. It's also important for fundraising. There is strong support for a pool, and that is a long-term goal of the community, and Township has placed a pool on their capital plan. I look forward to participating in a community campaign, working with council to make that a reality in our community someday. But however, as Madam Mayor notes, today our focus is on twinning the NDCC. I acknowledge the price tag is high to twin. However, there are two certainties. One, the price tag will always be considered high, and two, the price tag will not get lower over time. It was a concern in 2007, but council made it happen. Township has the financial capacity to make this happen. The township has strong community support to make the twinning option a reality. The township also has experienced leadership and a strong management team. The CCG is prepared to assist with fundraising. The operating cost savings are significant. The CCG, when this matter was last considered in 2008, 2009, demonstrated at that time that there was strong community support to twin, and the savings in operating costs over time made the twinning option viable. It was true then, and it's true today. The Phase 2 report outlines a number of benefits to the twinning option, and I won't repeat those. Mr. Langlois has laid out the case for increased need and use. I would recommend that council adopt the report and immediately establish a committee similar to the multi-use committee in 2008. The committee would include members of council, staff, the CCG, and the community. The goal would be to start planning for the building of the twin pad. This would include retaining an architect to produce drawings. This will help fine-tune the costing. As in 2008, and as we move through COVID, I would anticipate that there will be infrastructure funding that will likely be available for a project such as this. The more we can demonstrate that we have a viable, shovel-ready plan, the greater the likelihood for success of an infrastructure application. Infrastructure programs usually lean towards those projects that show that they will be ready to be completed within a timeline. We will be competing with many municipalities, including Wilmot. The more ready we are, the more likely we are to be successful in receiving funding. Back in 2008, we were able to show that we had a consultant report demonstrating need, we had architect plans in place, and we had a community fundraising plan. We just didn't have the land at that time. Well, we have the land now. We can complete the other pieces to finalize a package that is ready to go. We can be ready to go in short order. The CCG looks forward to working with Township Council again, as we did back in 2008. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and support this very important project for our community.
Thank you, Mr. Deutschman. So now are there no other comments from council? Councilor McCreary.
I would just like to make one comment about something that Mr. Deutschman said about the Phase 1. That Phase 1 had confirmed that the need for the arena was going to be there. I think that we have to accept that we don't have crystal balls that work very well. We are trying to predict the future, and none of us really know what's going to happen as far as the growth in the community and what these people are going to want. We are basing this need for the twin pad on the idea that the people that are coming here, moving here will be the same as the people that are already here, and the trends that we see elsewhere are not going to happen here, and that COVID won't have much of an impact. Well, I think that all these things are uncertain and none of us really know, but I do think as council, to make the right decision here, we need to make sure that we really carefully watch those registration numbers and see what the trends are, because no one really does know where we will be in 10 years. It's not really confirmed. We're just doing the best we can to project that, but no one really knows. Thank you.
And you're absolutely right, Councilor McCreary. No one really knows, but we as a council must plan for the future of our community. And sometimes the things that we do actually draw the people. So again, we have to go based upon good knowledge now and sound knowledge to plan for our tomorrows. Councillor Osner.
That was one of the points I was going to make, Madam Mayor, to support what Rob Deutschman was saying. That I remember when the developments up in down the south end of Ayr, the land wasn't moving, the houses weren't being built, the properties were sold to other developers, and it didn't seem, our town didn't seem to grow. We didn't seem to get a lot of families coming in until we actually had facilities in the town, so they didn't have to drive to Cambridge to further ice hockey or for, as you know, now skate park, any of those facilities. So those facilities are in our town now. Investing in our town to draw those families into our town is important. We do have to, as Councillor McCreary says, we don't have a crystal ball, and we do have to be very careful about it. However, we have to understand, if you build it, they will come. If you don't build anything, nobody will come.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Rollerman.
Madam Mayor, just want to comment on what Councillor Oster just said. It's a bit presumptuous to think that this new arena brought all these families in. There's lots of other factors involved in that as well. But whether we build a twin pad, or whether we build a skate park, or whether we build a pool, those are all things that will appeal to families. So we can't make a hasty decision and say, well, a twin pad is going to make our town quadruple in size. We have to be cautious and careful. Take some good information and make a good decision, not rush into this just because we think the NDCC was a magic pill that made our town grow. That's not really what happened.
Councillor Osner.
I just want to clarify, I wasn't referring strictly to the twin pad. When the NDCC was built and the soccer fields were built and the splash park was built and the coming of Lang's facility, those are all draws to families. And you know, like if Wilmot's booming and we're not, you have to look at what they're doing and what we're not. So I'm referring to all facilities, not isolated to this twin pad discussion.
And you're both correct, but we're looking at all avenues, and this is just the first one we're looking at. And the next one will be the leisure study, and our meeting the other night in regards to other things like the library and such, and how we want to watch that go. So we're planning as we should be, and we're not picking one thing or another. We're looking for a well-rounded community, something that all ages can come here and enjoy. This is one part of that well-rounded community. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, can I have the motion, please?
Certainly. So moved by Councillor Osner, seconded by Councillor McCreary, that CAO report number 38-2020 be received, and that the Township of North Dumfries Arena Strategy Phase 1 and 2 report, as prepared by Monteith Brown Planning Consultants as the lead consultant, dated October 16, 2020, be received for the purposes of information, and that the Arena Strategy Phase 1 and 2, dated October 16, 2020, be posted on the Township's website consistent with the reporting requirements of the grant provided by the province as per the Ontario Municipal Modernization Program, and that staff be directed to prepare a report on the Phase 1 and 2 Arena Strategy for the consideration of council at a future meeting to inform the development of the 2021 budget and 10-year capital forecast 2021 to 2030. So Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes, please.
Councillor Rollerman?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
All right, that carries.
Thank you. Now I believe we have the delegation Donna Ward from the Air Paris Band providing an annual update to council as regards the memorandum of understanding between the Township of North Dumfries and the Air Paris Band. Donna, welcome.
Thanks. So thank you, Council and Mayor Foxton. As a community volunteer organization, the Air Paris Band is unique to the Township of North Dumfries. It's also the oldest organization within the township. We have provided music to countless events in North Dumfries and have represented the township locally, nationally, and internationally. Over the last year, the Air Paris Band has participated in the rededication of the Air Cenotaph, a Remembrance Day service, Air Santa Claus Parade, Mayor's Levee, Air Cemetery Decoration Day, 4 concerts at Centennial Park, and a Christmas CD featuring the Air Paris Band and local musicians. Unfortunately, some of our concerts were canceled this year due to the COVID pandemic. We've also participated in numerous parades and concerts within the area. The waiving of the rental fee has allowed the band to continue to offer a free junior band program and continue with our senior band program without yearly dues, with instruments provided and also instruction. It's a unique situation in Waterloo region where there are no other bands in the region that offer a junior band program. And very few bands offer a senior band program without the requirement of a registration and instrument rental fee. For the upcoming year, we will continue to provide music as we can, as the situation allows. And we are currently creating a video to recognize the 75th anniversary of the end of World War II. It'll contain wartime music from the Air Paris Band, local school children signing, O Canada at the Cenotaph, the Air War veterans from World War II images, and a message from Mayor Sue Foxton. In Flanders Field will be read at the Pavilion in Centennial Park, and 3 forces salute from the Air Paris Band, including the Army, the Navy, and Air Force. We're asking Council to allow the Air Paris Band to continue to practice in the Air Community Hall at no charge in lieu of community parades, events, and concerts.
If I may, I'd like to say what a wonderful job you've done. You've touched this community in such a way. The programs, the people you've brought here, when you brought the youth fiddle band group here, and it's just amazing to have you here and to serve us. And every time we've needed something, you've stepped up. And now with this video that you're doing of the remembrance of the 75th of the World War II, amazing. And I am so appreciative of all that you do. Please pass that on for me. Councillors, any other comments?
I will, thank you.
Seeing none, can I have the resolution, please?
So moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Rolleman that the delegation from Donna Ward with the Air Paris Band providing an annual update for Council as required in the Memorandum of Understanding be received. Mayor Foxton, your vote on the motion?
Yes, please.
Councillor Rolleman?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
All right, that carries.
Thank you. And thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
And now we're at the consent agenda, 6.1, adoption and carried resolutions from October 13th, 2020, Committee of the Whole. Are there anything that anyone would like to talk about on those? You do not need to read the whole motion.
Okay, thank you. So moved by Councillor McCreary, seconded by Councillor Osner, that Council adopt the following recommendations as listed in 6.1.1A through to E on the agenda as presented by Committee of the Whole dated October 13th, 2020. So that's as presented. Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rolleman?
There you go. Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes. Yes.
That carries.
And next we have the motion to approve 6.2.1, September 28th, 2020 session.
So moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Rolleman that Council approve the following minutes. A regular Council meeting minutes dated September 28th, 2020. A special joint Council meeting minutes with the City of Cambridge dated October 7th, 2020. And Committee of the Whole minutes dated October 13th, 2020. Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rolleman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
All right, that carries.
Thank you. And CEO, would you like to make any comments in regards to 7.1? Consideration of agreement of purchase of sale of the former township municipal office property at 1171 Greenfield Road?
Nothing in particular, Madam Mayor. Certainly, I'm available to answer any questions that council may have on the report. I guess my only comment is it's been a long time in coming, and the net proceeds that would be derived through this sale, they'd be transferred to our reserve land account in a similar fashion with other properties that have been deemed surplus and disposed of by the municipality in the recent past. And
Any questions?
with those reserve transfers, those dollars are then available for long-term capital projects that council may identify in the future.
Thank you, CEO McNeely. Councilors, any questions? Could I have the motion, please?
Certainly. So moved by Councillor Rowland and seconded by Councillor Gillespie that CAO report number 37-2020 be received and that council accept the purchase price of $525,000 and the terms associated with the sale of the municipal surplus lands located at 1171 Greenfield Road, former township municipal office, as per the agreement of purchase of sale dated August 10th, 2020, as revised, amended, and returned to the township on September 30th, 2020 between the township and 2769832 Ontario Limited. And that the chief administrative officer and the township's real estate broker be authorized to execute the appropriate documents with the buyer to confirm the contents of the agreement of purchase and sale. And that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the transfer document and other matters as requested by the township solicitor to finalize the real estate transaction for the sale of 1171 Greenfield Road. And that the expenses incurred by the township associated with the sale of 1171 Greenfield Road for matters such as advertising, real estate, professional fees, preparation of property surveys, and legal fees be funded from the proceeds of the sale of the property. And that the treasurer be authorized to transfer the net financial proceeds arising from the sale of 1171 Greenfield Road to the reserve account land sales. So Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rowland?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
All right, that carries.
Thank you. And 7.2, federal province safe restart funding. Ms. Dettle, do you have anything to say, or do you want the motion self-explanatory?
No, I have nothing to add, but I'm available if there are any questions.
Are there any questions, councilors? Seeing none, can I have the motion, please?
So moved by Councillor Gillespie, seconded by Councillor Rowland, that the Federal Provincial Safe Restart Funding Report, FIN number 25-2020 be received, and further that council direct the Treasurer, Director of Corporate Services to allocate $222,000 received as part of the Federal and Provincial Safe Restart Agreement to the Township's Pandemic Contingency Reserve to be used to fund township operating pressures due to COVID-19 pandemic. So Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rowland?
Yes.
Councillor Oster?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that carries.
Thank you. And now we are at 7.3, correspondence received from the Region of Waterloo regarding Regional Council Composition Review, section of final option. So any questions? Seeing none, could you read the motion, please?
Certainly. So moved by Councillor Ossner and seconded by Councillor McCreary that the correspondence received from the Region of Waterloo regarding report PDL-CAS-20-11 Regional Council Composition Review, selection of final option be received. And further that the Township of North Dumfries supports maintaining the status quo for regional council composition beyond the current term of council, and that staff be directed to submit this adopted resolution to the regional clerk. So Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rowland?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that carries.
Thank you. And I believe next is There's no notice of motions, informations, communications, and correspondence. Is there anything in the correspondence anybody wishes to touch on? I was looking at Blandford Blenheim on page 134 in regards to the cannabis and restrictions they're attempting to put on. And Brent was a prime example where they didn't have the restrictions on. The outdoor cannabis farms opened up and the odor is phenomenal. And now they're trying to deal with it and finding great difficulties. So if you could look at that one on page 134. The other one was on page, or do you want to discuss them one at a time? Any thoughts on that one, ladies and gentlemen? Do we want to look at cannabis and possible bylaws to protect our community should there be outdoor fields of cannabis? Do we want a staff report on that? Or do we want to let it go? Councillor Gillespie.
I know from being down in Leamington, where they have a lot of cannabis down there, it is a terrible smell. And the problem I think they've run into is greenhouses that used to be flower producing are now producing cannabis. So we need to put something in about filters and stuff like that if that's going to happen. I don't know if we can do something like that or not.
Councillor Rossner?
I had a very similar experience at Niagara-on-the-Lake last year going to some of the wineries. One of the wineries we walked into, I thought the staff were out back smoking marijuana because it stunk. It was terrible. And then we went in there and the girl said that the greenhouses right next door were growing cannabis. I'm not sure there's much you can do about the odor, but if we were to come up with a bylaw within X amount of kilometers from a town or village, that's pretty much all you can do, because I don't think there's a way to curb that smell.
Actually, Councillor Gillespie is correct. If I may for a moment, CEO McNally, and then I'll jump to you. When we had the feed mill operation, do you remember how bad it was before we demanded they put the filters on? Do you remember the dust in the air and people's cars were ruined almost every year when they were running? The one where ABERB is now. And we demanded they put those filters in. And once they got the filters in, it alleviated the problem. CEO McNeely?
So Madam Mayor, just to build on what both Councillor Gillespie and Councillor Ostner have indicated, where there's been a concentration of greenhouse operations, there have been complaints about the pungent aroma of both the growing and the processing of the cannabis. Where they've taken an existing facility like an existing greenhouse and tried to adapt it, it's a different process than just growing traditional plants or vegetables, which may have been the historic use of those buildings. And so their exhaust systems aren't as sophisticated and they don't have the scrubbers in their filtration system. So I actually did have a discussion with our chief building official. Now this is about 3 or 4 months ago, about what opportunities he would have if there was a change of use permit related to converting a greenhouse to an alternate use. And he's actually going through the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, which oversees the building code, to see what opportunities may exist under a change of use permit. But perhaps we could have a legal review and see what opportunities may exist. We cannot prohibit the cannabis production. However, we can maybe add on to some of the regulations under a building code type aspect to get a more progressive and proactive building and associated amenities with that building to mitigate the off-site potential impacts. We do it with all other industrial sectors. And so I don't see why it cannot be finessed that it would deal with this singular type of aspect. But if council's agreeable, I can get a legal review and work it back through the building department.
Thank you, CEO McNeely. The other one I was going to ask about if council would consider endorsing is the Wellington, on page 126, the Wellington aggregate. And Ms. Dettle and I have been on a few meetings in regards to this, and CEO McNeely's been involved because TAPMO's been involved. So what we're asking for is that MPACT relook at the assessment value for aggregate. And the point being that aggregate right now pays D farm level, is it? Where it's less than 25 cents on the dollar. The other part of their taxes are made up by residential. So our residences pay the taxes for the aggregate areas when at its cut down rate. But the problem being is some of these pits are adjacent to the 401 in prime business opportunities. And so they're selling it at quite a bit of profit, but they've never paid the fair market value for taxes. And that's what we're trying to do, is to get a fair market value for taxes. And so if we would consider endorsing that, so maybe we could, CEO McNeely, would you be able to pull that one on page 126 and maybe reword it from North Dumfries' point of view? And then we can look at it and see if we want to submit it. Is that okay with council? Anybody disagree? Okay, thank you. CEO McNeely, can you refresh my mind about inclusionary zoning?
So inclusionary zoning is a new tool. And when I mean new tool, I'm talking 18 months, 2 years ago, that was introduced to the Planning Act to provide for a broader strata of range and clustering of house and house price points. And inclusionary zoning was to allow certain types of housing as of right within certain zone districts.
Okay, I'm just trying to find the motion on page 137 on inclusionary zoning, because did the Planning Act change it? Did they drop inclusionary zoning?
Sorry,
You're muted there. Yeah.
Madam Mayor, to be honest with you, the legislation applied initially to all 444 municipalities. It was a very complicated document for most municipalities to properly implement. So they took out the onus that made it a requirement and provided more permissive language for those communities that truly could leverage it as a tool to be able to capitalize upon the frameworks of inclusionary zoning. So I know, as an example, if I look at Waterloo Region, the city of Kitchener has been very proactive in terms of delving further into inclusionary zoning, and they've identified certain areas in their downtown or at the edges of their downtown where they can actually grow their broader spectrum of housing and create a more dynamic neighborhood or district within those areas. So they're achieving two different objectives. One is introducing a range or opportunity for affordable housing, and the other aspect is to create it as of right with a mix of housing styles and densities.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. The other one I want to touch on is the first one, ladies and gentlemen, the Wasaga Beach. If you saw on the news, the cars racing and the damage they did, and as the one man interviewed said, well, we saved enough money to pay our fines, so we came so we would do this. Maybe some of you don't know, but that group was going to come to North Dumfries and was going to use the NDCC. Because of a quick work between our staff and the police and council, we were able to thwart it, and it did not happen here. But Wasaga Beach is interesting because they're asking for a greater increase in fines. And I don't know if council is interested in supporting Wasaga Beach's motion or not. Any comments, Councillor Osler?
Yes, I would support it.
So, Ms. Sage, if you could draw up with CEO McNeely a type of motion that we can pass possibly at the next council meeting in regards to this, and we can discuss it then.
Okay, yes, certainly. We can bring something back at the next meeting.
Thank you. So now the motion, and you don't have to read them all. Councillor Roman.
Madam Mayor, I have a question about the Region of Waterloo minutes.
Sure.
Maybe you can provide us some clarification on page 146 of our agenda. Talking about winter maintenance in Wellesley Township. And I see that the region is now going to be subcontracting their snow plowing. So I
We
just want to know
fought
how
this
that,
tooth and nail.
how
We
does that,
thought that, go ahead,
how
I'm
does that
sorry.
affect us though? How does that affect the township? Are we affected by this? Does this affect us?
We fought this tooth and nail, and I worked with CEO McNeely and with the other mayors. We wanted to be able to take over the regional roads in our areas. As I explained at regional council, we do one of our roads, we have to lift our plow to drive down the regional road to do the next one. And one of the regional councilors said, well, the townships can't keep up with their plowing. Well, I explained to him that we do far better than a lot of other municipalities in the region, and that we could easily have this done in no time at all. So we did not succeed in this coming winter, but it is up for review, and I hope they will give us a fair shake because it makes more sense. CEO McNeely.
So Madam Mayor, if I could just add on to your discussion and assist in terms of where we are. I've forgotten the date, but in early November, representatives from the 4 townships are meeting with our counterparts at the region to discuss as a go forward what options or opportunities would exist as it relates to the regional road program. And it's from a maintenance perspective, not a capital reconstruction or design perspective. The adoption of the resolution from the region put in place a program for 1 year, being this coming winter season. And I believe regional staff is to report back to regional council in March of 2021. I do have a concern with the resolution as crafted in that it speaks only to the winter maintenance. I can tell you right now, if we're looking at exclusively winter maintenance, then the resolution is flawed because we will not be able to do it cost effectively if we're only looking at 5 months of the calendar year, because we would have to ramp up on equipment and rolling stock and personnel to meet the demands of the extra lane kilometers. And if you take a look at other jurisdictions where there's been a rationalization of services, and I'll use Lennox and Addington County as an example, and more recently, Elgin County, the local or area municipalities provide 4 seasons maintenance. And so if you look at it in the sum of the calendar year, then some of those costs are spread then over 4 seasons rather than just the winter season. Because the reality is, if we were only looking at winter season, we'd be faced with the exact same issue that the region is currently faced with. They weren't able to get enough resources to staff the Heidelberg yard for the 5 months. Well, why would 4 other townships then not be faced with the exact same issue? So certainly when I meet with my counterparts in November, that's going to be my first comment. That if we're only looking at just the winter season, then the whole study and analysis that flows from it will be flawed and have come to a predetermined outcome. But if we're serious about the discussion and we'll do a business case assessment, it would have to be on the 4 seasons.
We can go back because we've missed, well, first we will do the motion as is for the correspondence. Council Rowland, we're not at the region one yet. Is you were going to carry on with that? We're not there yet. Okay, so Ms. Sage?
Is this the motion to receive all the correspondence?
Up to, yes, for 9111, go carry on. 91.1 to 9111. Yes.
Okay. So moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Rowland that council receive the following items. So as presented, 9.1.1 through to 9.111. So Mayor Fox, can you vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rowland?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that carries.
Thank you. The next one is the Heritage Advisory Committee, and I'd just like to make a comment that the Dryden'sville plaque. I was supposed to be approached by a member of the Heritage Society. I've not been in contact with anyone. First time I only saw it in the minutes. So I just wanted Councillor Williman to know that. Are there any other comments about the Heritage Advisory Committee minutes? Seeing none, can I have the motion, please?
Moved by Councillor Gillespie, seconded by Councillor Rolliman, that council receive the following item: Heritage Advisory Committee minutes dated September 24th, 2020. So Mayor Fox, can you vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rolliman,
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
All right, that carries.
Thank you. And now we have the Region of Waterloo minutes, the Grand River accessibility minutes. So Councillor Woolman, did you have anything further to say on those?
Yeah, sorry, Madam Mayor, for jumping ahead on that.
That's all right.
The only other thing I wanted to ask about was, of course, was the face covering bylaw, because I know you got into a little bit of hot water with that, and it's on page 154 of the region agenda. I know at council, we talked about not wanting to extend it past December because we thought there would be this COVID fatigue setting in. And now they've set it for May 31st, 2021. And as you mentioned on CBC radio, now we're having, pushback and people are having COVID fatigue. So I just wanted to know if you could clarify your comments for us.
Yeah, and really good point. North Dumfries is doing great. We really are. And we've been in the white for a long, long time. And the white means that we're under 5. So anywhere from 0 to 5 cases. But my concern isn't that. It's 99.9% of the people are doing great. But we have that 0.1% that are sort of slipping. It's like, and it is like COVID fatigue, and they're not intentionally doing it. And I gave an example of someone actually came to my door and I answered the door and I wasn't 6 feet. I had to stop for a minute and back up. I had to remember. I've had businesses that are say, youths are coming in and they won't wear their masks and they're sitting down in certain places eating and they won't mask and they won't respect the staff. And I talked to bylaw, and bylaw says our skateboard park is a huge problem in that people aren't social distancing or wearing masks. So it's the slippage that we're starting to see happen. And it was interesting because I was at the Board of Health that I spoke at. And a couple of days later, CEO McNeely, we were at the pandemic control group at which Dr. Suli Wang talked about COVID fatigue. And then Mayor Jaworski talked about how he went to watch the kids at the arenas to see if they were lining up for hockey and everything else. And he said a parent would drive with 4 or 5 kids in their car, and that's great. They'd all get out of the car. He said then they went and played tag football with no mask on or anything else. But when it was time to get ready to go in the arena, they lined in up 6 feet apart. So it's the disconnect where it's okay in a structured environment where there's rules and regulations, they do it. In a non-structured environment, they almost like forget the rules. And so that's what I was getting at. And I will clarify that at Regional Council, but it's not North Dumfries. It is everywhere. And it's just little slippages. And we have to be careful. I went into a business last week and the staff was hacking and sneezing. And I was terrified because I thought, why are you even here? And that bothered me tremendously because they're putting all of us at risk. Folks, don't go if you're sick. Please stay home for all of our benefits. And then I was shocked at the numbers of over 1,000 cases in Ontario this weekend. That was frightening because I think that's the worst we've been. And so we do have to be vigilant. I know it's frustrating. I know we're tired, but when you're out and about, please be so very, very careful. At the same time, don't go after those that believe we're wrong in wearing the mask. Stay away from them. And don't go against those that aren't wearing a mask because they can't for health reasons. If they're not wearing a mask because of health reasons, you wearing yours is saving them. And that's what we have to do. We have to do the very best we can for each other. It's not looking like we're going to be able to share Christmas. We've got to turn this around. And now it's spreading even further to other municipalities rather than Toronto, Peel, and Ottawa. Now it's spreading further. There was Halton, and I forget where else was discussed today. And Halton's, the province is saying, we're going to have to take you back to stage 2. And I believe they're fighting it from the province. They're fighting those restrictions. We're doing great in North Dumfries. Let's not let it slip. We're doing so well. And I'm very proud of our community for it. So anything else? Any other comments? Our bylaws doing amazing jobs. They're really on top of this. Not just that they're on top of it, they genuinely care. They genuinely care about our community and our people. And I'm very proud of what they're doing. All right, so do we want to go on to the motion in regards to the regional Waterloo minutes and GRAC advisory?
Certainly. So moved by Councillor Ossner, seconded by Councillor Gillespie. The council received for the purposes of information the following items: Region of Waterloo minutes dated September 23rd, 2020 and September 30th, 2020, and Grand River Accessibility Advisory Committee minutes dated September 24th, 2020. So Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rowland?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that carries.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
point of order. I think we made a mistake on 9.2.1, the Heritage Advisory Committee, because I thought in that report that we were supposed to designate the GOR. Is that supposed to be a motion of council?
We did that. We did that in CEO McNeely.
So earlier in the month, committee made recommendations to council to authorize notice be given under the act. So earlier tonight, when council sat and adopted the recommendations coming out of the earlier report, that then legitimized, enacted the recommendation from earlier in the month. So now the clerk will give notice under the Ontario Heritage Act. We have to give 30 days clear notice in terms of advertising. And so then if there's nobody appealing the notice, then the bylaw will be presented to council for enactment.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, was that under one of the 7.1 or something?
So Madam Mayor, this was at Development Services earlier in the month that we moved forward with the designation under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act for the Coach House at 5 Gore Estate Court. Earlier tonight, council ratified those minutes. And so now we're moving into the implementation of that earlier position.
Right, thank you. Okay, and now we're going to move on to mayors and councillors reports. 11.1. I had talked to the region about removing one more spot at the corner of Stanley and Swan. And they said, if it's what I want, they would do it. And I said, that's wrong. It should be my council wanting it. Council, they've removed one spot. They will remove the second if it is your wishes. What are your wishes? For Councillor Gillespie and Councillor McCreary, or Councillor McCreary, you're probably aware, when you're coming down Swan Street to make a right-hand turn, they have added 2 parking spots that were not there before, and it blocked the visibility so you could not see the traffic coming down. So we had one spot removed. Some feel that's sufficient and others feel that a second spot needs to be removed. I'm going to ask Councillor Rowland and Ossner, or any of you, any comments on that? CEO McNeely.
Madam Mayor, is there an opportunity for council to consider converting that parking space rather than having it designated as a car park space? It be designated exclusively for things like e-bikes or motorcycles. They're typically lower in profile. And they're not as obstructive as a van or a pickup truck. But, right now we do not have designated car parks. We do not have designated parking spaces for things like e-bikes and motorbikes. And we are seeing more e-bikes in the community. And I'd rather see them on the road in a parking space rather than on the sidewalk. And right now, that's where they're parking.
What are your thoughts, councillors? Councillor Rowland.
One of the concerns that was raised when we were talking about the whole road project, way back when, was the loss of parking spaces. So, if we've already removed one space, now we remove two, and I know there's a lot of discussion initially about the net number of spaces after the construction is completed. We lost a lot of spots in front of where Gus and Guido's is now. So I'm hesitant to take spaces away. I'm not sure, is this complaint being driven by the owner, like Robson Carpenter, or is it being driven by residents? I haven't heard anything from anybody about it. So they've contacted the mayor directly. But
No, the email went to you first, Rod, and they
no one's
included me
actually talked
later.
about it. Like no one's actually talked to me about it or anything. I haven't had any complaints from any citizens. One spot to me seems sufficient. If we remove two, then I'm wondering, are we gonna start getting people saying we're losing a lot of parking spots? And that's my only hesitation.
Any other comments? Councillor Rossner.
I think if we remove one space, we should leave it as such.
So leave it the way it is? Any other comments? I'm comfortable with that. I will tell the region that council has decided we will leave it as it is. Sorry, CEO McNeely. We will find a spot for those electrons. Go ahead, Councillor Rossner.
Is that okay with the rest of council?
I didn't see any, I asked that and nobody said anything. Nobody put their hand up. So that's fine, thank you. I believe the next one is the decorations downtown. So there's a group that is willing to get involved with decorating the downtown for the holiday season. Now, I've worked on hopefully getting donated trees. We'll look at 3 trees for the east side of the cenotaph, so the opposite end of the cenotaph, in a grouping of 3, and these individuals will fundraise and raise money to decorate them. CEO McNeely also talked about putting a set of 3 trees decorated in the pond area at the end of the southerly end of the bridge there. And we tied, Michelle Passant will be working with this community for organizing decorations and funding. And and Councilor Rollerman will be working with them. Sounds very interesting. They were looking at possibly lighting up the bridge, lighting up the gazebo. Are there any questions, comments? Councilor Rossner and CEO McNeely. Councilor Rossner first.
So just so we're just clear on it, we're not actually decorating around the cenotaph or anything like that. It's going to be off to one area.
Correct.
Okay. And when was this committee and volunteering decided? Like when was this all?
They
put
sort
forth?
of formed a committee on their own, and then they reached out to the township, and I asked Michelle Passant, and CEO McNeely asked Michelle Passant to be the liaison. And I believe Rod touched base with them and like to have been involved because he's involved with the, what's the committee called, Rod?
The Public Lands Advisory Committee. And Christmas.
Isn't it called?
And the Stocking Stuffing Committee or whatever.
CEO McNeely, you were going to speak.
So maybe I can provide just a little bit more context. There's 2 focuses. One was to harness the energy from this community group that is engaged to look at adding from what has historically been done in the downtown or at the edges of the downtown in terms of decorations. And, obviously we're looking at the next few weeks because, believe it or not, we're at the end of the month of October. And the Christmas season starts shortly. Then the other component, working through Councillor Rollerman's Streetscape and Public Lands Advisory Committee.
Streetscape Public Lands Advisory Committee. Thank you, CEO McNeely.
They have the ability to strike subcommittees. And so the intent was to have perhaps some liaison from the Streetscape and Public Lands Advisory Committee, work with this community group on a longer term strategy, not only for Christmas decorations, but actually look at seasonal decorations in the downtown or the approaches to the downtown. But that would be a multi-year type arrangement. The other element was, yes, we're obviously looking at, for this year, opportunities for donations to assist in building an inventory of decorations, some that could be reused in multiple years. But the other was to leverage some seed funds out of this year's unspent portions of the budget to offset some of those costs that might exist if we're not successful in matching fully donations. So we have, because of COVID, we've had to scale back a lot of our public interaction, special event type programs that we would normally complete in a given year. And so we're well underspent in our public relations and in our council account for community events. And so the intent was, between those two accounts, perhaps use up to a maximum of $4,000 if we're not able to align with donations to meet some of those decorations that they're looking at.
Councillor Austin.
Well, it sounds like a great idea. I just don't understand why it didn't come to council, why the idea didn't come as a report to council to kind of fast track this, especially if we're looking at using some of our funding that's left over and stuff like that.
That's what this is right now. This just happened last week. So this is why it's coming right now.
But you're telling us what you're doing. You're not bringing a report to council and saying, council, how do you feel about this? We're going to be like, nowhere in the initial discussion was there anything what CEO McNeely said about using some of our funding to pay for the Christmas decorations, etc. You spoke of donations. You didn't speak about council money. So I'm just wondering why this didn't come as a report and a request from council and a plan that maybe involved more of council rather than something that sounds like it's been done and settled already. And now we're going to let the chips fall where they may. I think it's a great idea, but I just think it could have been a little bit more open and organized with council.
I don't disagree with you. I think we were under a time crunch, and I do apologize for that. The Streetscapes Committee already existed, and we did pass that. They do have the ability to create the committees, but this actually was a committee that started itself by the public. And then they approached me because they wanted to do things on municipal areas. And then I touched base with CEO McNeely and said they should work with Michelle Poisson to formulate. So I do apologize. And I guess this is the way we're putting it forward right now to use and asking your opinion and your approval. See, go ahead, Councillor Rossner.
What exactly are you asking from the rest of council that are just hearing about this right now?
I'm asking that Councillor Rolleman agree to this committee running under his Streetscape Committee, that they put together what they're going to put together. And when it's put together, they present to council to move forward with it. And in the time frame, if the time frame doesn't allow it to come to council because we meet too far out, then that it go through the CAO to the councillors for by email for sort of, oh yeah, that's a good idea, or I don't know whether I like that. Councillor Rossner.
So then again, my question is, why is this not a report today where we could have decided this today and given our approval to, so this doesn't have to come back to emails?
It will still have to come back to emails if we're approving things outside of the norm. This was just done and decided. I think, CEO McNeely, did you say that we would report it to council on Friday? So the time to write a report was very short. And I am sort of making excuses. I'm afraid if we defer it now, that we may lose it. Councillor Ossner, and then Councillor McCreary.
Because the only thing is I'm looking at this kind of as a knee-jerk reaction to the slamming of the discussion with there's no Christmas decorations, there's no this, there's no that. And because that pressure was put on either members on council or the mayor themselves or staff or whatever it was, it seems like this was kind of rushed and swished under the, let's just appease the complaints and problems and issues that are being put forward. And if we're going to do this, I would like us to do this correctly, not just because we were pushed by certain members of the public to do it. I think that, again, it could have come through a more professional way of doing things, where we can actually support as a council, this is what we're going to do, because I think it looks better when the council is concerned, and we are concerned about the fact of the lack of support put into the community for seasonal decorations, whatever it is. And I think it looks better as council doing this rather than just, the mayor under pressure or whatever it is, making the decision.
I have to take offense a bit at that because it wasn't me under pressure. These people already started a group. Then they said, what do you think? And that was last week. And I touched base with CEO Machili and Michelle Passant because I didn't think it should come directly from me. Michelle should be communicating with them. And I have always stated I want the downtown decorated. I don't think this is pressure at all. In fact, Councillor Ossner, you can probably remember I decorated the downtown for a good 20 years. I decorated the downtown when I ran my business in town here. And I put lights all through Centennial Park, and I decorated street corners. I ran Christmas events in the evenings in the core. So I've always done that. And I've always wanted to maintain that. And we only lost the decorations in the downtown because they basically fell apart, I believe, 5 years ago. And we always thought we were going to replace it. That was a horticultural society. Well, the Horticultural Society hasn't had the ability or time to step up yet. And every year, not just this year, every year, the community has said, where's our decorations? And I was hoping again the horticulture would step up, and they haven't. I'm not criticizing them, but this group has said they want to do it. The lady that wants to take charge is a decor person and has a business, I believe, in Brant somewhere. But she lives here, and she would love to do this. And a lot of other people in town got on the wagon with her. And we decided we would come and approach council with it tonight. And this is the report we're bringing forth, the verbal report, which is quite legitimate in any kind of political body. Verbal reports are acceptable. They do not have to be written reports. This is not a committee of, it is not a task of council. This is a citizens group asking to do this. The same way I was a citizens group when I started the first initial Carol Sings downtown, when I decorated the downtown, every year I went to council saying, I'm going to do this. Is it okay? And council said yes or no. Councilor McCreary is next, and then Councilor Ossner.
Am I next? Okay. I'm trying to straighten out what's going on here. Is this group asking for some taxpayer funding, some of our budget to do this?
Initially, no, they did not. They asked, they said they would fundraise, and they wanted to know if North Dumfries would consider any funding.
Well, I'm thinking that when we community groups are asking for public money, we have a procedure that they go through where they create a budget, they request the money, come in and present to council, something to that effect. I'm not saying that this is not a great idea and these are not, fine people, but we don't know who they are. Could they come in and speak to council and ask for a particular amount of money? I mean, isn't that the normal procedure? Why is it just been a verbal request that some people somewhere want some money to do this?
Councilor Ossner.
Okay, I'm not questioning your involvement with the community in days gone by in the past and present. What I'm questioning is because of the fact that there was a lot of heat on Facebook, this has come now. And as Councilor McCreary said, like my understanding is if a private group want to do this and want to fundraise, want to do all that stuff, that's fine. But there was no mention in that part of the report at all until CEO McNeely said that we have seed money sitting in a funding that we could use. So I'm just confused. Are we approving this committee or this group to go ahead as a private group to do this? Or are we approving, as Councilor McCreary said, taxpayers' money to do this? Because either way, I'm fine with it. I just want to know clearly what exactly is being asked of us.
I am asking that we give them seed money. And I talked to CEO McNeely, and a couple of the expenses that we would need would be a stand for the trees. And so I was looking at galvanized pails that a tree stand would sit within it, and then we would pack it with bags of dirt or whatever to weigh it down so they could decorate them. So we would need tree stands and the pails. The rest I'm basically leaving to them. And CEO McNeely stated that if we got that, that's something we could use for many, many years and continue to do so they would last throughout time. So it would be a good investment. So I'm actually asking for the seed money. I am asking for the seed money. The time is short. Every year we get, this isn't new. This isn't just this year. It was last year, it's been the last 5 years that the people have said, what is wrong with us? Why can't we look like other new communities? Why can't we celebrate the season? And when this group approached, I touched base with CEO McNeely and I touched base with Michelle Passant and Council Rollerman touched base with them as well as with me. And I'm asking for the seed money so that it can go ahead. And what I like about it is it's an engagement of a group of individuals who love our community and want to beautify it. And yes, they can come and they can ask for grants. It's Councilor McCreary, Councilor Ossner, and then Councilor Gillespie. They can come and they can ask for grants, but the granting's not now. They were hoping that some of the decorations would be up for this Christmas, and they actually hoped for it last Christmas. And so they've decided that they want to be involved so they can make their community more beautiful. Who did I say first? Councilor McCreary, Ossner, and Gillespie? Councilor McCreary.
I'd like to say that if there's a community group wants to come forward and do some decorating of the downtown and volunteer some time, I think that's a great idea, but I'm not willing to grant money to people who have remained nameless. I mean, could they not come into next committee of the whole and speak to council? The next committee of the whole would be, early November. I mean, there's still lots of time to put the Christmas decorations together. I'm just reluctant to authorize some unknown people to have some unknown amount of money. I would like to see this done in a more formal way. I can't see why this has to be done.
Ms. Sage, when is next committee of the whole?
It would be November the 9th. Yeah, sorry, November the 9th is the next committee of the whole meeting.
Okay. Councilor Ossner, you're next.
Yeah, I think that if Councilor Rollerman's willing to and Mayor Foxon is willing to take care of this, I mean, I put my trust in the whole running of it. It's no problem. But what I think should happen is a list come together and we purchase the items that are needed. Like, I think there's no problem when trees come out that we should just go out and purchase some trees. We should get some decorations. We should get local businesses. We should notify every local business to see if they can do something outside of their businesses as well. Most of them do, but some of them don't. And then where they don't, where it's empty in certain areas, we can refill with more decorations. But if Councillor Rollman's willing and you, Mayor Foxton, are willing to oversee this, then, you know, if the streetscape committee is going to purchase all these things and this group says this is what we'd like to do, then, you know, let's go for it. But like I said, I just wanted to be clear on exactly what extent we are going to put into the event.
And thank you, Councillor Austin. I believe I've got the trees for free. I'm not sure yet. I haven't confirmed it, but I believe I've got them for free. Councillor Gillespie, you were next.
Yes, I do think it's a wonderful idea to get the community involved. My only problem is I have a community over here that if you're using some of my money that I could use over there in air, it's not going to benefit Ward 4 at all. So
That's
we have people from Clyde and Brampton saying, well, how come we can't get decorations? So it's kind of could be a snowball effect.
Actually, I suggested that to Brampton a couple years ago, Scott Tilley, in putting a tree up in Brampton Park and decorating it with the lights there, because I believe by the pavilion is an outlet. And they didn't seem to go with it at that time, but that's something you can still do. It's not, these people approached us. We didn't approach them. It's something that's still feasible. C.O. McNeely, why couldn't we use the foundation money that they gave us for neighborhoods? Because this is a neighborhood type thing. I don't understand that.
Mayor, the terminology that keeps being used is Christmas, and not all your residents may be Christian in nature. And one of the requirements of the grant is that it be secular in nature and be all inclusive.
I think it really should state holiday.
The language is very, very clear in that respect.
Right, and we should be using the word holiday. So if we use the word holiday, could we use the neighborhood grant money?
Madam Mayor, we haven't had discussions at that granular level with the foundation, but they have very narrow terminology. The focus, if I look at representative examples of how the funds are to be used, they predominantly talk about gatherings and events.
Can we check that with Ann Lavender and find out if the holiday thing will allow it to happen? And Councillor Austin was next, and then Ms. Stedall.
Well, perhaps then Councillor Gillespie, and if Councillor McCreary would like to, maybe in each of the wards we should put a holiday tree up and make sure that the tree is decorated with multi-denominational, multicultural, etc. But maybe
Don't
we should
you think
have
one would
something.
look beautiful at Roseville Center as you're coming down Fisher Hallman? Don't you think a decorated tree? Now there is a big tree there. It'd be big to decorate because I think there is a big tree there. But I think it'd be beautiful. Ms. Stedall.
So just to clarify on that grant, that the $5,000, that's for an inclusive event. I've already spoken to two people in regards to the community foundation, and they both indicated that the money is not to be spent on individual items unless they are for a specific event. So that
But you're not
has
allowed
been
events.
clarified. The Christmas decorations are not, as CIO McNeely has indicated, they're for an inclusive event, so that must be non-secular.
I think I'll
There's
talk to
also
Ann
another
Lavender
item
tomorrow.
that's coming up next following this, and that also has to do with money that has already been allocated in the budget for year-round decorations.
I think I'll talk to Ann Lavender tomorrow because we're not allowed events. So we're not allowed to gather. So Councillor Osner.
Okay, so then if that's the case, then let's not use that fund money. If we have some money left in the budget somewhere else, let's use that money and do what we want to do, rather than having to bounce around the different issues or guidelines of a singular event and this and that and the other thing. Why don't we just find the money within council ourselves and do what our community wants to do?
Well, that's what CEO McNeely had stated. There's money there already that has not been spent. That was for events that we didn't have. So if I understand this, what is the wish of council? I know Councilor McCreary wants them to come and speak at committee of the whole, puts them in a tight bind for getting the thing done. Councilor Osner is okay with going ahead. In the future, it would be better planned out because CEO McNeely said we will deal with this at budget for growing over the years. Councilor Rollerman.
So, Madam Mayor, I was going to wait for my report, but I guess it's all part of the same discussion. It seems to me that all of this is starting because there was a post on Facebook about Christmas decorations, and somebody pointed out that there was a $50,000 grant for downtown Christmas decorations, they said. I corrected that person on social media and said, no, it's for year-round decorations. The Public Lands Streetscape Advisory Committee has worked diligently for the last year to get year-round banners put in place. They're all ready to go, but now we've run into a snag with Energy Plus. So people are saying, where's the Christmas decorations? Well, quite honestly, they're sitting in the township shed because we can't put them up. We have Remembrance Day decorations, we have Christmas decorations, or not really Christmas, but winter decorations. All the money's been spent, everything's ready to be put in place. And now at the last minute, Energy Plus has turned around and said, remember how we told you in November of 2019, you could put up Christmas or you put up banners on the hydro poles? Now they're saying, oh, by the way, you can't. So we can take the banners that we made and we can throw them in the garbage, courtesy of Energy Plus. And
But we have a solution, Councilor Bowman. Tell the solution.
I'm saying the intent was to, Councilor Osner mentioned it, 6 years ago, let's bury those hydro wires. And we were told, no, we can't bury them because the poles have a good service life. Okay, fine. Then let's dress them up so that they don't look so obnoxious. Oh, no. Now we can't even do that. So we're stuck with these ugly poles all through our downtown that we're not allowed to clean up. But yet, if you go into St. Jacobs or other places, they've done it, no problem. But for some reason, Energy Plus, in the only downtown that it does not have buried hydro wires, because if you look at downtown Galt, Preston, Hespeler, Paris, they're all buried, but not Air. Apparently, we're not even allowed to take the ugly concrete poles and put decorative banners on them to make our downtown look more attractive all year round, which is what the Streetscape Committee was tasked with doing by council. Council approved it. We did our job. Shelley, Stettel, myself, Cynthia, we spent a lot of time with the Air News, getting all these banners made up. And now it's basically being thrown in our face, and people's reaction is, oh, we need to put up Christmas decorations. And so now, as Derek said, council is taking a knee-jerk reaction to my committee being thwarted by hydro. And I think it's unfair. It's unfair to the committee. It's unfair to me, to Shelley, to Cynthia, to the company in London that did the work. And now these banners are going to be stuck in Centennial Park, perhaps. That's not the intention. And I think we need to have a discussion later, perhaps, about this, but I don't think we should give up so easily and allow hydro to push us around.
Okay, so, but getting back to the Christmas thing, Councilor McCreary, to the
I was-
holiday thing.
I wanted to respond to what Councilor Rolleman was talking about. We're a shareholder of Energy Plus. Shouldn't we be able to speak to someone about what's happened here? I mean, if we were initially told it was okay for us to buy these banners because we could hang them up, and then they turn around nearly a year later and reverse that decision, I mean, that's a huge waste of taxpayers' money. There's been, was it $50,000 spent on these decorations? It's really a huge waste of taxpayer money. So I don't think that we should simply accept what's happened here. I think, like Mayor Fox, and I'm sure you're on the board of Energy Plus, and you probably know the president. Why can't we have a meeting with him or discussion with him about what's happened and see if something can't be done? Because this is a policy.
It has to be the board. The board decided it 5 years ago before I got on.
Speaking yet. I wasn't done speaking yet. Is there some way that we can have a meeting with them, the people involved, and find out what the issue is, why we can't put the banners up if something can't be done to mitigate the situation? Because this is a loss to taxpayers.
So I will approach the board and see, because it was a board decision. It doesn't have to do with the president. The board decided it. I don't know why they decided it. I will do some digging tomorrow, and I'm not sure when the next board meeting is, but it shouldn't be too far off. So I will have a discussion with the board. But in the meantime, putting them in Centennial Park is not a bad thing. anyways, getting back to, I'm going to ask that council support the subcommittee of the streetscape. Could you have found an easier name, Theo McNeely, to call this thing? The streetscape public, whatever that committee is, to allow a
Public Lands
subcommittee.
Advisory Committee?
Thank you very much. To allow a subcommittee that will work on holiday decorations for 2020. And I can't move it, so I need a mover and a seconder. Councilor McCreary.
I'm trying to understand this whole arrangement here. Are these people that are already on Councilor Rolliman's committee, because you're calling it a subcommittee of his committee, or is this like a task force, which is really completely separate from Councilor Rolliman's committee?
CEO McNeely, do you want to explain?
So, Madam Mayor, through to Councilor McCreary. In the terms of reference for the advisory committee, it does empower the committee to set up subcommittees, and that does allow them to bring people from outside of the committee to work with them on matters of interest. What was suggested, because you got to remember, we're dealing with a lot of public lands. We also have to coordinate with potentially private landowners. So rather than things being done in a scattered manner, the intent was to go through a structure that we have in place to ensure proper coordination, proper due consideration, because we have to remember, this will be through the Christmas season into early part of January. We have to maintain the sidewalk system if we have snow events and the like. So we're trying to create some structure through the advisory committee to ensure coordination and that proper consideration of all relevant items are properly addressed. We're harnessing the energy of some of these area residents and putting them through a structure of our advisory committee to ensure proper integration and coordination. The second part of the assignment would be looking at a multi-year strategy inclusive of 4 season opportunities.
Thank you. So can someone move that for me? Because I cannot as the chair. Councillor Austin will move it. Thank you. Can I have a seconder for that, please?
No seconder? Is everybody freezing, or is it just
Just Madam Mayor.
we seem to have lost Rod? And we lost the mayor. They're dropping like flies. You're on mute, Andrew.
Yes, I know. If we can just pause for a moment, let the mayor reboot back into the system.
Yeah, and Councillor Rolliman has also messaged me that he's frozen, so I've suggested he go back out and try coming back in as well.
Okay, so I have a quick, is everybody using a tablet? The township tablets?
There you go.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
No,
Are you, Andrew? You know, if you hold the space bar down while you're talking and then let go of it, you hold your space bar down, it'll unmute you, and then you just let go.
So who's the deputy mayor right now?
Is it me or you?
I think it's you.
It's you, Derek.
You're in charge right now, Derek, then.
Yeah, Councillor Osner, yeah, you are the deputy mayor.
Okay,
So,
quick, let's
Mr.
get
Deputy
this done
Mayor,
before we get
I have a
back.
question. Mr. Deputy Mayor,
Yes, Councillor Rolliman.
perhaps we need to have a report come back for the committee of the whole for us to consider, because I'm not really sure what we're voting on.
Is that council's wishes? Councilor McCreary?
I guess I'd like it to have a report come back to council. Like anyone else that's on a committee has a name. Like these people don't even have names. I mean, this task force or subcommittee, why is that? Like, can't we do this in a more formal manner like we typically do?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, and it just seemed, like I said, it seemed like it just that came in response to the Facebook bashing that was done. That's why I had mentioned if it went through Councilor Rolleman's committee and a subcommittee, and they were handling the finances and the purchasing and stuff like that, then that's fine. Normally, I would agree with you 100%. I'd like let them come with a plan to us. It's just, like I said, it blew up over the weekend, and here we are, and this is what we're getting requested, being requested. So if we wait, that's going to be another, what, 2 weeks? Is the 2 weeks going to make a big difference to get decorations? What do you think, Rod?
Probably would be a problem to get the decorations. But I guess the question is, can this committee get their own funding and work with the mayor for their own trees? And then in the meantime, they can come back to us with a report and we can decide if we want to put any money into it.
Well, I think that we should do something with the downtown. We should do something. We always should have done something. I can't believe that Energy Plus would take this stance now. For 30 years, we've had every year, except for the last, what, 2 or 3, we've had the Christmas decorations put on the hydro pole. There's plugs up on the hydro pole to plug in the decorations. And now they're saying we can't use it. Why would they put the plugs up there if we can't use it? So I don't accept it. And now we're bouncing back over to the next report, Rod, but I don't accept this decision from Energy Plus, and I think we should do whatever we can as a council to push hard. This just doesn't. CEO McNeely, do you know the hydro poles? They're on township property, correct?
So in the downtown, depending upon which road they're either on or within the regional road allowance, if I look at a Northumberland or Stanley Street situation, or if they're on a Gibson or Manley, or a Tannery, they're on a local road allowance.
Okay, and is there any written agreement between utility companies and townships as to their poles being on our properties?
So utilities, which would include hydro, are to be accommodated where possible within municipal road allowances, whether it be local or regional. The issue that has arisen was there was a regulation passed by the province of Ontario, and it's regulation 22/04. So this regulation set out expectations as it related to safety and work on or adjacent to hydro networks, including the local distribution system. And essentially, it provided for clearances, both horizontal or vertical in relationship to the aerial hydro lines, and what is required in terms of spatial separation and certification through stamped drawings to demonstrate that not only the operation, but the ongoing maintenance of that supporting infrastructure does not impair either the reliability of the hydro system but more importantly, the safety of people working on or adjacent to the aerial hydro system. About 5 years ago, the Board of Energy Plus took the Ontario Regulation 2204 and crafted a policy that they adopted. And that new policy stated that they would not allow for decorations and similar types of devices to be installed on their poles. So it was exclusively hydroelectricity and telecommunication systems.
Okay.
I'm back. Where are we at, ladies and gentlemen?
Okay, I think that I'd step temporarily into
Thank you.
your seat. And I think the general consensus with council, their voice their opinion that they'd like to see a report come back to council.
Perfect. Did you go on to the next motions or?
No, we haven't done any, we haven't done any, written up any.
Okay, I heard CEO McNeely talking. So was that Councillor Rollman?
So do we need a motion then to come to the table about this, bring report back on next committee of the whole meeting? Is that what we need to do?
CEO McNeely?
I don't need a recommendation or a resolution from council. I clearly understand where council is, and council will have a report on the 9th, and we may be able to speak to members of the community that have expressed an interest, and they may want to add a delegation or a presentation as a compendium to that staff report.
So have you talked, Councillor Rollman, have you done any more in regards to the banners?
So that's where we're at now. So with the
Okay.
banners, the question is, what kind of discussions can we have realistically with Energy Plus? I mean, I know you're at the board level. There seems to be some discrepancy with the staff level. I know Mark Smuck, the previous director, along with Michelle Poisson, had met with representatives from Energy Plus in November 2019. They had walked the street. They had counted the polls. We had basically received permission to go ahead, and now suddenly that's reverse course. So what mechanisms are available to us? What can we do to continue on? Because I mean, putting the banners on the Piper Street Bridge or in Centennial Park or up by the NDCC or wherever, that's all great. But the actual intention was a Main Street grant to be right downtown. So I really want to know, is there no way that we can push Energy Plus a little bit here and make them give us some concessions? I really don't understand. The CEO had mentioned that there's a possibility for an engineer report or engineer stamp to give us permission to put these on the poles.
So I'm just emailing Ian Miles right now. So I said, Ian, can we talk about this? And Andrew, what are we going to say about the engineer? We will get an engineering report if necessary.
So Ontario Regulation 2204 talks about anything being affixed to the hydro pole requiring a professional seal from an engineer demonstrating that whatever being attached to the pole is done in a safe manner by design and function. I guess what I'm looking at is today is the 26th of October. Our first round of banners are Remembrance Day banners. Remembrance Day is quickly coming upon us. What I was suggesting was on an interim, while we work out the longer term logistics with Energy Plus, why don't we put the banners up that we have on the Piper Street Bridge? Those poles are ours. They don't interfere with the aerial hydro line because they're part of the light standards or luminaires for the bridge itself. We have 9 decorative streetlights, pedestrian scale, in Centennial Park. If we put the banners and the decorative emblems on those standards. Ms. Stedel brought to my attention today, we have a lot of traffic in and out of this building. If we put the remnant banners up on the light standards as you come up Sangster's Lane, entering into the complex. That would put up the decorative emblems and the Remembrance Day banners that have been purchased. In the interim, a parallel approach is taken where discussions would occur with Energy Plus. And to Councillor Ostner's point, there have been historically pendants and other decorative elements placed on those poles. If you were to go out there today, you will see those brackets. Because of the road reconstruction project over the last 3 years, they haven't been put up because they would have been in conflict with the construction program at varying phases or stages. We're trying to relaunch the downtown coming out of 3 years of construction. And the township, with initial discussions with Energy Plus, has got 4 seasonal banners to be deployed throughout the year on about 24 poles. The emphasis was the downtown. Companion with those banners are decorative emblems of symbols of Ayr and North Dumfries, the thistle, the swan, and they refer back to 1824 being the founding of the village of Ayr, and their bronze metal emblems, which would be on the opposite side of the pole. So you'd have the banner on one side and the emblem on the other. And this was part of the streetscape program as a phase 1. The streetscape committee then may look at other initiatives, which could be plantings, other seasonal decorations, street art, whatever, but to grow interest 4 seasons of the year in and adjacent to the downtown. But the initial program was the banners with the decorative emblems. So I'm looking at it immediate so that we can get the Remembrance Day decorations up in recognition of that milestone, which is 2.5 weeks away. And then companion to that, having our discussions with Energy Plus and looking at some element of grandfathering.
Councillor Austin.
So one of the things I was going to mention is that I'd recommend have staff put up the Remembrance Day banners in the downtown section, right where the cenotaph is leading out towards Swan Street, on the hydro poles, as well as the poles that we can put them on. Put them up on Friday, which would be what, the 7th, and leave them up until the 11th and take them down on the 12th. And if Energy Plus has a problem with that, so be it. That's number 1. Number 2 was there, Councillor Rollman, I think you said something about Energy Plus went around with Mark Smuck and said they counted the polls and they did all that. And is this documented that this happened and there was there dialogue with Energy Plus and they led us to believe that we could do this?
We could subpoena Mark Smuck and bring him back, make him testify.
Well, there has to be documentation that this took place and that they actually worked with us to get the number of polls and locations, etc., that we could put these signs up.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'd have no problem getting our township lawyer to issue a letter to them saying that if you're not going to let us put these up, then we want the money for it. I mean, we got to put pressure on them because it's silly. It's silly.
If I may, I've already emailed Ian Miles, and I want to touch base with him first. And let's do it as nicely as we can to see if we can make this happen. If we can't, we have the backup plan, as CEO McNeely said. I wouldn't recommend we go ahead and just do it because we're going on somebody else's property. And so you should have permission. Well, their poles are theirs, they're not ours. And not just that. They usually charge for uses of poles. For instance, other corporations, yeah, I know, Dexter, almost blew it. Other corporations have asked to use the hydro poles and they get paid a commission. So
But we're
this
the
is
township.
Hmm?
We're the township. And,
I know.
And I still believe that a dialogue has to open with the township lawyer, because this is not right.
I would like to do that as a last resort. I would like to first see if we can come to some compromise.
Well, the sandbox is getting
My
pretty
compromise is
small.
we get our way.
Well, I mean, I don't know, like, I'm just getting tired of more and more things in this township not being in our control, not being in our hands. Everybody is telling us what to do in the town of Ayr, and we are getting, or the township of North Dumfries, not just the town of Ayr, and we're getting lambasted by the public because we have zero power. And now we can't even put banners up, banners in our community. Give me a break. Like, there is an ultimate as to what level. And yeah, we can continue to play nice guy, but that's not getting us anywhere. I think we need to stand up and start showing these people that we're the township. This is what our people want. And this is what we need to do to make it happen. And we want your blessing to work with us to make this happen.
Okay, and we'll approach, I have approached Energy Plus. I've sent the emails out. In the meantime, I think CO McNeely's plan is a very good plan. And it does allow for us to have some type of banners up this year. And it will enhance our downtown. It really, once people see the street done, it's going to be stunning. And then when they see the banners, even as this through Centennial Park and a few other places we can put, it's going to be breathtaking. And we should be very proud. And if we have to do things in stages and beg, borrow, and steal along the way, we're not stealing, Councilor Osner, but
Our cenotaph is not in Centennial Park, though. And if they want to disrespect our Remembrance Day service, our cenotaph and our residents, then let them take those banners down.
well, let's approach them first with the discussion. I would prefer that to open that dialogue first. But this was
Running
just
out
for
of time, though.
information. Are we done with this? Can we go on to the next subject? Is that okay? Okay, the next one is
Is there
the
any
community.
vote on this, or is this just coming to for information?
It's no vote, it's just information. Okay, the next thing is the community champions in North Dumfries. Every year, the Chamber of Commerce, Cambridge Chamber of Commerce does this recognition of individuals and groups and what they provided for the community. And I had a couple of recommendations. One is neighbors helping neighbors, because they do take care of our community. I was also going to recommend the ministerial. When things happened during COVID, the ministerial stepped in and delivered groceries for all the shut-ins and seniors. They're still doing that as Todd needs them. They ran several programs within the community. They reach out to isolated individuals to make sure they're safe and okay. So they've stepped up during COVID. I believe Councillor Wollerman recommended Michael Schmidt and what he's done for the Kirkwood Apartments. Do you want to touch some base on that, Rod?
Sure, Madam Mayor. That project largely went ahead because of the work that Mike did. I know that there's a committee, and I was part of that construction committee, but attending those meetings, Mike was really the guy that was driving that whole ship, and he made it happen. And, you know, when people want to volunteer like that and do something really that he has no personal gain from this, I think we need to recognize him, because in the future, that'll encourage more people to become involved in our community. You know, he didn't have to do all this. He's gone through so much to get this done. A lot of, you know, issues with the dead bodies buried in the parking lot, and funding and mortgages and construction problems and overruns. And it's just been a full-time job for him in addition to his real full-time job. So I kind of want to put his name forward as somebody. I'm not sure which of the three categories he'd fit into, but maybe not for profit or something, but I think we should seriously consider him as well.
The other one I was thinking of is the Gleamers. They're not for profit, right, Pam? And I think they'd be great on what they've done. I can't think of anyone for Ward 4 besides that family that did the food drive. Who was that? What was their name? It's not. Oh, I know them. I know them. I know them. They did the first food bank drive during COVID. There's been 3, but they did the first one. Councillor.
Those are residents in Ward 3.
Ward 3, right? Strands. Was it the Strands family?
Strang or Strong?
Strands family.
Yeah.
Oh, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
The other person that that has come up in conversation is Jared Bellamy with the skate park. I know a lot of people think that he should be recognized somehow for all his efforts getting that skate park, pushed forward.
Okay. CEO McNeely, do you know whether we have to do a write-up on these people and explain why, or do we just nominate them, or what?
Typically in the past, when we've identified community leaders to be recognized, staff have put together appraisals as to who they are, what they did, and what it meant to the community in terms of either an important project or a legacy type initiative. So yes, we've put together a backgrounder to support the nominations.
Great. Councillor Gillespie.
Well, I was just reading the description here, and I don't know if the Gleaners would really apply because they don't, like, the only way they assist the township is by having people go and volunteer there.
Right.
Because this stuff doesn't get to the township. So I think the group in air that do the neighbors to neighbors thing, like, I would think they would be better suited for that, for sure.
Is anyone in Ward 4 that stands up for Ward 4? I know Pete Rivers donates to a lot of things in that. And you had the gentleman that organized the fireworks every year and
well, he's Pete Rivers' son-in-law, so it's all that family. So, yes.
Do you want to put their names forward? You don't have to if you don't think it really.
Well, I don't think Pete would really
want the recognition.
Yes, yes.
Okay, understood. Well, we've got a good batch here. There's the Neighbors Helping Neighbors, the Ministerial, Mike Schmidt, the Strauns family from Roseville, and Jared Bellamy. Okay, so we'll leave that in staff's hands right now. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Nope, there is this one, the bylaws, first and second reading of the bylaws. Ashley, oh, you're still there. Hi, Ashley. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm still here. Okay, so motion for second reading of the bylaws. So moved by Councillor Osner and seconded by Councillor McCreary that the following bylaws be taken as read a first and second time. Bylaw number 3195-20 being a bylaw to amend the parking and traffic bylaw to set the maximum speed adjacent to Cedar Creek Public School, Air Public School, and St. Bridget's Catholic School to a maximum speed of 40 kilometers per hour. Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rolliman?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that carries.
And the next one, please. Third reading.
Moved by Councillor McCreary, seconded by Councillor Osner that the following bylaws be taken as read a third time and finally passed. Bylaw number 3195-20 being a bylaw to amend the parking and traffic bylaw to set the maximum speeds adjacent to Cedar Creek Public School, Air Public School, and St. Bridget's Catholic School to a maximum speed of 40 kilometers per hour. Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rolliman?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that carries.
Thank you. And we will do the confirmatory bylaw, please.
Moved by Councillor McCreary, seconded by Councillor Osner that bylaw number 3196-20 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council on October 26, 2020 be read a first, second, third time and be finally passed, signed, and sealed by the mayor and clerk. So Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rolliman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes, if I can get my stand to work.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
Okay, that carries.
Okay, and the adjournment.
Moved by Councillor Gillespie, seconded by Councillor Rowland, that whereas business before this regular council meeting has been completed at 9:29 p.m. and be it resolved that this meeting adjourns and meets again on Tuesday, October 27th at 7 p.m. for a public planning meeting. So Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rowland,
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
Okay, that carries.
Thank you. And now, comments from the council? Any comments from council? Seeing none, is Miss Adney on? Does she have any comments?
Yep, so council's just, I'm sorry, staff are just going to stop the live stream.